watch that I don't wear. So I'll call the meeting to order. First off, we have open forum, and April Browning would like to say a few words. And apparently so would my phone to let me know it's time. Yeah. So now it is 9 o'clock.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is April Browning. My home is in Southgate. Living so close from only a mile from town, I also feel that I'm a resident of Mount Forest. Recently, there's been an increase in vandalism, and it's very sad for the community. Such a lovely community, and it's happening in all small towns, and it's sad. Being who I am, a rule follower except for speed limits, I visited the OPP station in Tibiadale, not even thinking that I'm a resident of Southgate, but nonetheless, the damage was done in Mount Forest. I spoke with the desk sergeant, and we discussed many of these problems that are happening to so many small towns lately. We spoke about the shortage of police manpower, and I believe the most valuable part of our conversation was the fact that people don't notify the police. Without reports, they can't justify an increase in manpower, and basically what it boils down to, without documentation, it's just an opinion. That very night, many of the beautiful planters along the main street in Mount Forest were damaged. They were destroyed, they were broken, and vandals had a heyday. It was disgusting. I then posted a message on Mount Forest, what's happening, and my message was, call the police and report incidents, whether it's your personal property or town property. With one exception, who unfortunately sits on the Southgate Police Services Board, it was received well. Over 111 icons, although none of them were smiles. 45 comments, 15 shares, and we're still counting. People took notice. And this all occurred within a couple of days. I'd just like to read what I posted so you know that I'm not, shooting people down. I do respect the police, believe me. I, like so many of you, am very concerned about the incidents of robbery, property damage, reckless driving, and disturbances in late night hours. Seems to be escalating since the OPP moved out of town. This afternoon, I went to the new offices of the OPP and spoke with the Staff Sergeant, Bruce Aiken, about the growing number of incidents. He listened and agreed closing the Mount Forest and Palmerston offices, left them both with less police presence. Unfortunately, we tend to get angry, annoyed, vent to friends, neighbors, and go online. This is not solving the problem. Staff Sergeant Bruce Aiken said unless we start calling and having these problems registered, he cannot show the higher-ups that they do indeed need more officers in the region. When he has these complaints with dates, times, location, he can then attempt to bring back the old Mount Forest where we could leave our possessions on the front porch and feel confident they would still be there in the morning. So please call 1-888-310-1122 and calmly voice your problem and help the OPP help us. Well, a member of the Police Services Board said he was very thankful that there was very little presence in Thornhill when he was an adolescent 55 years ago. We did delinquent stuff and that inconvenienced some people, but no real damage. As adults, we need to allow youth some latitude. Nobody wants to destroy their future by branding them a criminal. This is not kid stuff. Kid stuff is moving somebody's garbage can to the next lot. This is not kid stuff. Nicky Nine Doors, that's what we used to play. But anyway, we still got in trouble when we got home. So I guess I appreciate your time. This is not just a Mount Forest problem. This is happening, unfortunately, all over, and the police can't help us unless we help them. So I realize that I know very little about the Southgate policing. So, for example, I would like to know where my local OPP station is, where are the police board meetings held, when's the next meeting, can we speak at meetings, and thank you for your time. And I will take more notice of Southgate issues, believe me. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you. We do have a copy of what you had there, so that'll be part of the minutes, and that we're going to put that on the Police Services Board as well. on my calendar to see if I have this July 16th at 9 a.m. here is the next Police Services Board, and the Chatsworth is the OPP detachment office for here.
Thank you very much.
No problems. And that's an issue we have all around, not just with police services stuff, but municipal stuff in general. Somebody thinks if they put it on Facebook that everybody knows about it and it'll get handled, and depends who their friends are, who's looking. So yeah, we could get people to call in or email, do whatever they have to let people, whether it's a municipality or police services, know it would be helpful. So thank you. Yes.
At the Police Services Board, are people, residents allowed to speak at the Police Services Board, or do they have to request in advance, or what's that process, perhaps through the chair to the clerk?
Through the chair to members of council, so there is a delegation that you can request to come to the Police Services Board. It would just need to be approved by the Police Services Board, but if we know about a week before the Police Services Board meeting, we could put you on the agenda as a delegation.
So, I fill something out, or?
I've got your email here, so I can email you a copy of that delegation form.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Computer shut down, so I'll just give you a second. There we go. Okay. So can I have confirmation of the agenda, please, as amended? Brian will move it, and Jason will second it. Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. If there's any declaration of pecuniary interest, you can say it now or at any time through the meeting, and then fill out the appropriate forms for the clerk. Seeing none, we'll move on. And we have a presentation by Burnside Associates, and this is to do with the Drainage Act. So come on up, Tom, and have a mover and seconder for us to receive this presentation. Barbara and Michael. So, yeah, we got that. Thank you. So this is the Matthews Martin drainage works that's been requested, and Tom Fridham will review the proposed work and cost distribution, and then we'll look at some questions. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. It seems like I was just here a few minutes ago, but
Yeah.
Nice to be back again. Just for a quick overview, consideration of the report is basically to allow the petitioners to see if they want to proceed or not. And I think council is very familiar with what's proposed. Also with this today, Steve Hood from the Ministry of Transportation. Steve's present with the discussions we've had. And Greg and Susan Dixon, they're right on that lovely property up on Highway 6. And they've been involved in discussions as well. I know council's familiar with it, and Steve and Greg and Susan, so I don't think we need to review a great deal. I have spoken to Grant Matthews, and who's one of the main petitioners. I'd like to see it in the ground as soon as possible. And I think Orville's probably milking his cows this morning, so I don't think he's too worried. He wants to get it done as well. So unless there's any concerns from council or Greg and Susan or Steve, I think we can carry on.
Okay. Are there any questions from council on this? No, I think we found out a lot last time you were here. Okay. Any questions from landowners or other parties? It's looking good so far. Anyone in the area that requiring drainage wish to withdraw their names from the petition?
As I indicated, Your Worship, both petitioners want to proceed as soon as possible.
Okay. This part of the meeting then can be concluded, and the provisional bylaw can subsequently be given first, second reading, and the Court of Revision date set. So that would be that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sometimes it's got to be easy. Sometimes. resolved, council received this presentation from RJ Burnside and Associates as information. All in favor? Thank you. So we know how today's gonna go. More coffee, that's right. I think that was the problem, I quit drinking coffee, I haven't had any since last night. So we'll have to move on from there. Next up, be it resolved that council received the Community Foundation Grey Bruce presentation as information. Can I have a, no? Nope. Oh, we're doing the report right after. Okay, might as well do it in order that's on the sheet in the computer. Be it resolved the council receives staff report CL 2019-025 for information, and the council approved bylaw 2019-107 to provide for the construction of the Matthews Martin drainage works, and that staff be directed to schedule a quarter revision for Wednesday, August 7th, 2019 at 8:30 a.m. in the council chambers at the municipal office. And that, and we'll have to appoint 3 people as members of the quarter revision, and that staff be directed to circulate provisional bylaw and quarter revision notice in accordance with the provisions of the Draining Act. So we're looking for 3 names from the, Jim, would you like to be on that? Okay, and Martin, and did you want to, Brian? Okay, that's 3 names. Anyone else? Okay, we're all happy with that, so can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Martin and Jim, any discussion? All in favor? And that is passed. Now I can move on. Be resolved that council received the Community Foundation Grey Bruce presentation as information. Can I have a mover for that? Michael and Jason? Okay. Hi. Come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning. There we go.
Great. I did send along a PowerPoint.
Yeah, I've already come in.
Okay, perfect. So my name's Stuart Reed. I'm Executive Director of Community Foundation Grey Bruce, and it's a pleasure to come down. What a beautiful drive this morning to beautiful Southgate, and to speak to you a little bit about our foundation. I'm going to give you a quick introduction to the Community Foundation, and then talk a little bit about our community funds, which is something that you might be interested in. So our foundation's mission is to encourage endowment building, and we facilitate philanthropic partnerships with all communities across Grey and Bruce, and we do that for the present, but also for the future. We invest in our community by providing grants to a wide variety of nonprofits and charities every year, and we provide leadership in identifying community issues and convening discussion about community vitality as well. So just some quick facts about our movement. It is called a movement. The first Canadian foundation was established in Winnipeg in 1921, and I'm happy to announce Community Foundation Grey Bruce is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year, having been established in 1994. And today there's 191 foundations right across the country from coast to coast to coast. And in terms of our movement, it's estimated that 90% of Canadian communities are represented by a foundation, and collectively our network manages more than $5.2 billion. So we're fast becoming a real investor in community vitality. And this little map shows you where they're all located. You can see there's quite a cluster in Ontario and Manitoba and BC, but there's some dots appearing up in the north as well. So there's continuing to be interest in the movement and establishing those community foundations. So this is a shot of my first day of work. I got to meet the Governor General when he came to Owen Sound to talk about his Smart and Caring initiative. And we're surrounded there by our board members, and that really makes the foundation a unique service for our community, because we are managed locally by local expertise and who are interested in local impacts, and that's kind of sets us apart from some of the commercial options that are out there for people who are planning their philanthropic giving. And how a community foundation works, kind of a complex infographic, but essentially we cultivate donations of community assets. The assets are invested, and we never spend the capital. We give back the interest in the form of grants. And we also have a lot of community input through our granting process. So volunteers sit on our grant review team
We get applications from the community that service all sorts of aspects of community life, from arts and culture to sports and recreation to social services. And then we make grants, and that notoriety kind of cultivates awareness. We get more donors coming in, so it's a nice cyclical format. And the next slide, just since inception in 1994, we've granted over $4.5 million back to the community. Just in terms of scale, back in 1995, our first year of granting, that was $2,500, and then last year, $726,000. So you can see our impact continues to grow year by year. And the types of funds we manage, there's quite a range. Unrestricted funds are monies that are given to us. Some of them support our operations of the foundation. Field of interest funds can be set up for donors' particular interests. Could be the environment, could be sports, could be children's welfare. Designated funds are set aside by donors to support specific agencies or charities. Donor-advised funds, those are ones where we have a consultation every year about what the donor's interests are, and we may match up the donor with applications from the community to create grants. Scholarship funds, we have over $1.8 million in endowed education funds that support scholarships, bursaries, and awards for all kinds of education pathways for Grey and Bruce students. Agency endowment funds are established by particular organizations that are often charities that set up an endowment so that their operations are supported in perpetuity with an annual grant. And we manage funds are a different type, where we might take in assets from another community foundation or another organization to take advantage of our investment strategies. We don't have any of those at present, but that is one model. Right now we manage 150 funds with over $60 million in endowed assets, and as I mentioned, $726,000 in grants last year. And we have 5 active community funds, and those are Owen Sound, Meaford, Grey Highlands, Saugeen Shores, and Kincardine. So community funds, that's a really interesting prospect. The next slide. They grant, they're a fund that grants particularly for a municipal area, so they're geographically specific. They're run by the community itself, so there's often a volunteer team, often with a representative from the municipality, who come together to manage how the funds are sequestered from the community, and also to give input to the granting process too. So the local knowledge would inform where the grants would go on an annual basis from the community fund as well. And it's under the umbrella of the Community Foundation, so that community fund is able to issue tax receipts to all the donations that come forward in the community. So it's a great receptacle if you have people in Southgate that would be interested in investing in Southgate in perpetuity. They want their legacy gift to benefit their home community. That's what that community fund can do. And so it is, as I mentioned, under the umbrella of the foundation, so we set the strategic investment policy, and the money's pooled with all the other money we manage. So there's great oversight and stewardship in that respect. And then the community fund itself is very much involved in advising and setting policies and practices. They may implement their own application process or utilize the foundations, and then advising on the grants as well. So a very important function. There's another complex infographic, but you can see the Community Fund Committee works alongside donors from the community. Those monies are invested. There are recommendations provided on the impact of those funds in terms of the grant making, and a great celebration to give out grants every year. One of our most successful community funds is the Kincardine Fund, and it's run as a municipal committee of council, and we have a representative from a councillor on that group, and they promote their fund through their website. We are really thrilled with the momentum that Kincardine's created by that kind of shepherding through of the process. And next slide, just show you some of the granting events that we've had in Kincardine, support all sorts of things from the local theatre to the local Pride Parade. Next, we have a fund in Grey Highlands. We had a celebration there, part of our roadshow last year, and everything from music concerts on the green of the local church to the local food bank there. And then Meaford, we had a celebration at Meaford Hall, representatives from the Meaford Fund supporting all kinds of things, including kids attending a theatre camp at Meaford Hall. so subsidizing their scholarship requirements. Saugeen Shores, another great fund. Here we are in Southampton at the Art Gallery there. We also support the museum on various occasions, as well as other charities and not-for-profits locally. And of course, Owen Sound has a very robust committee and a lot of granting that happens there, everything from the United Way to the local senior center, which hosted us last summer. So I hope that's a model that interests you and you'll dig in a little bit deeper. I refer you to our website. There's lots of information on community funds and our functioning. And just winding up, I wanted to remind you about our vital signs work as well. This is a report that we produced in 2016, which is kind of a community report card looking at how we're doing in terms of indicators of wellness and vitality in our area. Next slide is, we also twigged on the issue about youth retention in our area. You can see the arrow pointing to a statistic there. On average, less than 60% of Grey Bruce youth do not expect to find a job or live in the region after school. So that's something that's quite concerning in terms of our intergenerational exchange of business and in the agricultural community, farmers, and that turnover of the generations is something we worry about a little bit in terms of that statistic. It led the foundation to run some conversations with youth in our area. We did 2 of those in 2017, one in Wyerton, one in Hanover, and that's led us to produce a Vital Focus on Youth report. This is the cover of it here, and it's available on our website for download, and I think you'd find it very interesting to hear what we heard from young people and some of the statistics around conditions of life in our community for people under the age of 29. So that's something we're going out in the community and talking about over the next couple of years with the support of RBC Future Launch, who have been very generous in terms of funding some of our that report and the vital conversations that we're going to be staging too. But I thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Brian?
Thank you for the presentation, Stuart. It's very good. Always good to see you.
Great to see you too, Brian.
Your statistic about the 60% of youth not expecting to find a job, how does that compare to other areas in the province or the country?
It is higher. There is a technical paper on our website which gives the context for some of these statistics. So you can look at the technical paper and file down, and it probably would give us a Ontario comparable. But I remember it is a bit higher than the provincial average.
Right.
But you're quite right, Brian. I don't think it's a unique problem to Grey Bruce. I think most rural communities across Ontario, youth do leave to go to school and to kind of spread their wings someplace other than home. What we're interested in is making sure that they have a good experience while they're with us, so that they want to come back and build their family and their life at a future stage.
Even though it's not a unique problem, it doesn't mean we shouldn't try to solve it.
That's right, and what we heard in our conversations with youth was there was a lot of things that could be better for them in their home community. They talk about lack of a youth voice on decisions that are made that affect their lives. They talk about a lack of a regional transportation system, which often leads to youth isolation and issues with mental wellness. We heard about substance use in our community. That is an issue, making them feel either unsafe in their peer group or at home. Lack of diversity. There's a whole list of things, things that we could work on to really engage youth in coming up with problem solving to maybe make those situations a bit better.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you. And I think key to that is having youth involved in getting those things done, so that we're not out in left field trying to do something. Or
Through the chair, thank you. Nice to meet you. I was wondering about is there a minimum contribution that Southgate should be aiming for in order to have our local community foundation, such as Meaford, Owen Sound, and Grey Highland?
Sure. So the threshold for opening a fund is $5,000, and the fund would be invested in our regular standard investment pool. And then the next threshold would be $25,000, but once it builds to that point, then we begin to grant out. So there is a bit of a hiatus while it's building. And the foundation, of course, would assist in getting the word out and trying to cultivate donations from the region as well, work with donors around the contract agreements that you'll need to bring the funds in.
So I had been in conversation over the last little while about, maybe establishing a local scholarship program using the community funds that we currently have coming in through our solar park, our solar garden, and our eco park fund. If Southgate were to sign on to a local community foundation, and we, made a lump sum contribution to get started of, let's say $25,000. We also have another fund that we give out to local organizations like the Fall Fair, the Fireworks Festival, that promote those events within the community. How would that scholarship fund, if we were to pursue something like that, how would that unfold? What would be required to establish a base scholarship fund that we would award to local Southgate youth pursuing specific areas of interest?
We would just need to sign up an agreement. We also have an investment option for scholarship and education funds, a dividend pool, which means kind of blue chip dividend stocks. So there's a bit higher return and a more regular annual return on the dividend pool. The threshold for granting is a bit lower. Those scholarship funds begin to grant out once the fund reaches $7,500. And how should I tell you? The dividend pool is that might be a great option. It's a little bit more accessible, and what we do is we pay out the realized gains from the market every year on those dividend stocks. So it's usually quite a regular return. Maybe not as in the other investment pool, funds are able to build a little bit of a cushion to buffer against bad market years. And I should tell you, in the last a number of years, the foundation's usually granted out between 3 and 5% of the total fund market value, which is established at the end of the previous fiscal. This year we're granting 3, but the last 3 years it's been 5%. The markets weren't robust in year. Is that the right word?
One more, sure.
Just one more. So if we were to establish a local community foundation, similar to our neighbors, there would be representation from Southgate, but guidance through Community Foundation Grey Bruce. So you've got the expertise, and then we would have input in how those funds were delivered.
Yes, that's right. You'll probably be interested in looking at our website. All of our applications are through online platform. So if it were a particular fund, a scholarship fund, we could administer that, and you can direct it as you see fit. You get all the applications and make a selection each year of the person who would get the award. A community fund might be a little bit different. That might be the solution to taking some of your decision making around community groups' annual grants a little bit arm's length distance that is of interest to some communities. Meaford's been talking about that a lot, about how the community foundation can perhaps administer community grants on behalf of a municipality.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's kind of a complicated thing. I hope I haven't confused the issue.
Any other questions from council?
Just a comment.
Okay, yep.
Good morning, Stuart. As a member of the Friends of the Local Library, we've been recipients for many years. And I was always amazed when I went to your gala at the end of the year to give out to all the people that came, the diversity and the amount of money that you gave out to different groups is just awesome. I'm just so glad to see that you're doing the road tours, because that is going to help your donation dimension. So, good job.
We are coming down here in a couple of weeks to the library, yeah. And I should thank Brian, who's one of our ambassadors. We have about 30 ambassadors across the region who are kind of our champions and door openers and people that are representing us in their communities, and we really appreciate his ongoing support.
Okay. So do we. Thank you very much. It seems like an idea that's going to be a big discussion. So have to go back here to the resolution. Be it resolved that council receives Community Foundation Grey Bruce presentation as information. All in favor? That is carried. Next one up is be it resolved council receive the presentation from Grey County Tourism as information. Do I have a mover for that? Brian, and seconder? Martin? Brian, come on up. How are you?
Thank you, I'm great. I know money, but I brought some goodies, the shorts and brochures and that.
Wow.
So hopefully that'll do.
Love brochures.
That's right, that's it. Speak.
Yes. There you go.
Well, thank you very much. A pleasure to be with you this morning. I see Mayor John and Deputy Mayor Brian up at County Council frequently, but not so much the rest of you, although Barbara, we've had some great discussions. So great to meet you. If we haven't met, I'm Brian Plumstead, the Manager of Tourism. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about tourism this morning, and I think I can land this in 10 minutes. We'll keep the slides going fairly quickly. And I always like to start with what is tourism, because I'm sure if I asked you that question, everybody would have a slightly different image. Some of the words on the screen are things you might think of: accommodation, cruises, places to eat and drink. Many of these things make up tourism. If we can go to the next slide, the definition of tourism in Ontario and actually around the world is very simple. It's any trip that people take either overnight or same day for non-routine activities, and the same day trip is more than 40 kilometers. So that's how we measure tourism. So very simple concept, but the trick is it's very hard to differentiate tourists from our local visitors. So when we look at the impact on our local economy, that's where it gets really tough to evaluate the true impact of tourism. Well, tourism is one of the fastest growing industries around the world. Since the last recession, it's been growing 6 to 8% a year. As you can see from the graph, it's really taking off. Next slide, please. And the good news is in Canada, we had our biggest year ever last year, over 21 million visits, but we only grew 1%. So we're really not keeping up with the international opportunity. So Destination Canada, Destination Ontario are really working on that to try to bring more international visitors to our province. Well, if we back up a sec, the U.S. is our biggest market at 14 million visitors, but over the last 20 years, their relative share has actually shrunk. So they're down to about 68% of our visitors, and our international visitation has grown to about 32%. So the UK, biggest market, but China has been growing steadily and quickly, and will soon overtake the UK as our biggest international visit market. So many other European and Southeast Asian countries make up the rest of our visitors. Here in Ontario, next slide, we have 144 million annual visits, 26.8 billion in spending. Unfortunately, these are 2016 numbers, they're the most recent ones we have. And I'd like to point out that tourism is a very highly taxed industry. So out of that 26.8 billion in spending, 11 billion comes back to various levels of government in taxes. Most of it to the feds in the province, but we still get about 1.2 million to municipalities. So really important. And that supports over 188,000 businesses and 391,000 jobs. And a lot of those jobs are youth. So youth make up a big component of our workforce in tourism. Next slide, please. And really that's because we have over 140 million consumers within a day's drive. So Ontario has a huge market potential, and we've been getting more successful in the last few years at bringing people to Ontario. Next slide. So this slide, unfortunately, tourism is a fairly complicated industry. We have many levels. So on the right-hand side, the simple idea is to bring visitors into our communities to spend money. Eventually, maybe they like the place, so they want to move here and become residents, and we certainly see that in Grey County. But in order to make that happen, we have a wide range of partners. So on the left-hand side of the slide is everybody who's in the tourism industry. The most important group, really, in my view, are the businesses, the operators, the folks who own businesses. Even some of those are municipality service clubs that put on events and host visitors. And so there are many people working to bring visitors to our area. Here in Southgate, you have some service clubs that put on events and really are part of that, the Optimism Alliance Club, most notably. You certainly have a big role in tourism. Glenn Walker, for the time that he has, he seems to be very effective in the work he does in tourism. He's always promoting county level, I'll sort of talk a bit about what we do in a moment. Then as we go up higher within the province, we have a regional tourism organization, Bruce Gray Simcoe. They've been around since 2016. There are 13 of them in the province, and they're great partners. They have funding programs, or partnership programs, I should say, where we can work with them on experience development, marketing, and et cetera. Above that are sector associations, things like the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs, Resorts Ontario, Festivals and Events Ontario, many organizations that represent members in different sectors of tourism. Then we have the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario, which is like an umbrella organization. I happen to sit on the board of directors of that group. We do a lot of advocacy work at Queen's Park to try to keep up the importance of tourism in front of our elected officials at the provincial level. Then above that, Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport is our parent ministry, and then Destination Canada is Canada's marketing agency that works right across Ontario. So really, we all try to work together to bring visitors into our area. And usually most municipalities were focused on short-haul visitors within the region within an hour or two drive. Grey County, we reach out a little further to our destination markets. We'll look at those in a moment. And then we partner with Ontario and Canada, again, to bring visitors from further away. So kind of a complicated industry, but still very important. Next slide, please. So we at Grey County, we're a department of the county, and there's really 3 full-time staff, myself as manager, 2 tourism assistants. We do bring in summer students, and we're really blessed this year to have May Fernandez. Hopefully you know that she's a resident of Southgate, temporarily living in Hanover to be a little closer to work, and Beth Walpole, who lives in Chatsworth. They're out at events all across the area, and they'll be here in Southgate attending some events and farmers markets and such. Like Olivia Yale was a summer student last year that we brought back and actually created a new position for her because she is very skilled in communication. So she's assisting our communications department as well as tourism. And our goal really as a department is simply to grow the Grey County economy through tourism development and marketing. Next slide, please. We have a tourism advisory committee that assists us really to think strategically, to think ahead into the future, look at coming trends. So we have 5 members, mostly from tourism businesses across Grey County, and then 2 county council reps. Next slide, please. And then also a very important group, which are municipal staff people who have some involvement in tourism. That, of course, includes Glenn Walker, your Economic Development Officer. And we meet quarterly, really to make sure we're keeping in touch with what's going on in each municipality, to share what we're working on at Grey County. And this is the group that really worked hard on our Tourism Matters campaign, which I'll talk about in a moment. So next slide, please. We have a Destination Action Plan, which really sets out the work that we do every year. And again, that TAC committee, their job is to look at our performance indicators and make sure we're doing what we said we would do. And we have 4 pillars in the plan. Stakeholder engagement is working with our stakeholders, which includes businesses, municipalities, communicating with them, making sure we are aligning with them. Destination management is our marketing and our product and experience development. Market research and tracking is sort of the numbers. That's me, I'm kind of the numbers guy. And then resource allocation is, we did a whole reorganization of our department a couple of years ago, and now we really work hard at professional development to make sure that we're keeping up with all the trends in tourism. Next slide, please. So quickly, some of those pillars. Under stakeholder engagement, this year we did a whole campaign during National Tourism Week, where we, through social media, radio, and some outreach with local municipal councils, just talked about the importance of tourism, and also how we as residents can be good ambassadors for our visitors. Next slide. Destination management is, marketing is a huge job for us, so our website is probably our biggest job, our social media, and we also work on outdoor recreation, cycling, food, culinary, and arts and culture to develop those products and experiences. And as part of our Coloring It My Way campaign, we had a couple of residents, I think, from Southgate last year. One was a student, Jordan DeJong, who does great video and photography work. He lives just outside Wilder Lake. Next slide. And then some of the content on our website featuring Southgate attractions, Full Throttle, the local campground, et cetera, et cetera. So we really try to make sure we represent all our municipalities. And then our market research and tracking, I'd like to just spend a little bit of time looking at the impact of tourism. So if we can go to the next slide. As we said, when tourists come into our area, they really create the demand for tourism, our visitors. In our communities, they visit businesses who create commodities and industries, and then that creates benefits such as employment, gross domestic product, and jobs. So next slide. These numbers come from the province, 2.7 million visitors in 2016, and the vast majority, over 50%, come to Grey County for pleasure trips, and that's very high compared to other places in Ontario. So we really are a destination that people love to visit. Next up is visiting friends and relatives. So we know it's very important to talk to our residents about what there is to do, to make sure that when friends and family come to visit, you know where to go and where to spend your money. Next slide. And recently we've had access to some mobile data, so we can actually geofence an area and look who came there. So this is a compilation of a lot of our downtowns and various data sources, and it's sort of like a heat map of where people come to visit Grey County. So GTA, and then kind of the donut around GTA, Peel region, Vaughan, Milton, Brampton, et cetera. Those are our real big markets, followed by Kitchener-Waterloo, Guelph, and London. Next slide. And here in Grey County, using the Ministry of Tourism's definition, there are 1,300 tourism-related businesses, and these are businesses that serve both tourists and non-tourists. So I want to be very clear. So it's not just folks who are solely tourism, they also serve local residents as well. That's about 13% of our total. Next slide. And our visitors spend over $333 million in expenditures, and the vast majority, over 40%, goes to food and beverage. So a lot of our downtowns, our restaurants are serving visitors as well as locals, and that often enables them to be a little more profitable. Accommodation, transportation, retail are also very important, and then recreation and entertainment would be things like golf courses, Full Throttle Speedway, things like that, things to do. So that's sort of the pie of how our visitors' expenditures happen. So next slide. So that supports over 8,000 jobs, and out of that we can do a calculation of our visitor expenditures that 2,800 jobs are directly supported by tourism out of those 8,000, and it generates about $3.1 million in taxes. Next slide. Well, here in Southgate, as in most communities in Grey County, tourism really spurs growth in our communities. It attracts investment, preserves heritage, and really improves our quality of life. Probably supports a lot of activities that might not be there without visitors to support them, so that we can enjoy them as well as residents. Next slide. And as well as the direct impact of tourism, which is usually very visible, a lot of those tourism dollars also find their way into secondary industries like finance and real estate, agriculture, manufacturing, so they help support indirectly other industries. Next slide. Here in Southgate, using that same methodology, I should caution when we get down to the municipal level, the numbers can be a little wobbly. So I know I've seen a few inconsistencies in this data that aren't quite right, but about 64 tourism-related businesses, so that's about 8% of the total. Next slide. The number of jobs is a little higher in Southgate, about 17%, and a lot of those jobs, as you can see, are in the retail trade side, and unfortunately blacked out by the automotive support and other support industries at the bottom. So there is some accommodation, food services jobs, but a lot of the tourism impact comes in those, again, service industry jobs. Next slide, please. And opportunities here, well, events, we have a wide range of events happening around the year. I usually love to come to Maple Fest, so I'm pretty much here every year and really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite events. I think it's so well done, and it's great timing because we're talking to folks from south of here who are planning what they're going to be doing for the summer, so we love to attend that. Butter Tarts and Buggies is a great trail and tour, and people really love to have an itinerary, something that guides them around, tells them where to go, what to do. So that's a great opportunity. And I think you're working on community action plans, and downtowns are so important, we think, for tourism. It's really like the cash register of tourism. A lot of folks come to Grey County for our natural opportunities, but if we don't bring them into our downtown, we sort of lost the opportunity. So we're always trying to funnel people through our downtown. The CP Rail Trail, and lastly, residential development, I think is a huge opportunity, both as a source market to make sure folks can spend their money in Grey County, but also a lot of people are attracted to come here because of our quality of life and our kind of tourism opportunities. So next slide, I think that's, oh yes, a few challenges we have, workforce issues. I think I heard a little bit of talk about our youth retention is a big challenge. Housing is a huge challenge. And our sustainability, some of our natural areas are starting to get very busy, so we're trying to get ahead of that curve and just making sure that we move people around before places get trampled and overrun. And then always trying to build partnerships with our local businesses. So thank you for your time, and certainly we work very closely with Glenn Walker at the staff level, but we also welcome the opportunity to share what the good news is in tourism with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, it's funny, we don't, at least I don't at times realize how much tourism there is here, and I've helped out at Maple Fest and the things, and it's really busy times and really good events, and there are all over the township. So that's yeah, it's really important. Are there any questions from council? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Brian, really appreciate it.
I will. Our warden has issued a challenge. I think you, John and Brian heard it, but challenging all councillors to visit Grey County, get up there and spend some time and post to social media. So I brought some little packages for you all with maps, brochures, things to do across the county, and here, of course, in Southgate. So I will leave that with you.
Great, thank you. And I think one of the big things for us in the near future too is we'll be launching our new website in August, the 7th. So we'll be able to get more interaction for different events and things going. And I think it's important, this is as part of the county, that we promote neighbors' things as well as our own, because that's where we're involved, is all the border lines and everywhere else. So it's really good. So thank you again. Okay, so we're going to vote on be it resolved we received the presentation from Grey County Tourism as information. All in favor? And that is carried. Thanks, Glenn. Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes of June 19th council meeting as presented. Michael and Jason, any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Okay. Next up, be resolved council receives staff report CL 2019-023 for information, and that council approved the changes to policy and guidelines for displaying of flags, policy number 51 through bylaw 2019-105. Do I have a mover for that? Jim and Martin, any discussion? Brian?
Yes, to start, I'd say that I really can't argue with the policy as it's put forward because we only have 2 flagpoles. But I wonder, given what some of our neighbors have done and what I think we should be doing, would it be possible to ask staff to bring back a report on the cost and a policy, a draft policy for use of a 3rd flagpole out in front of our municipal offices here that could be used as a community flagpole, so that when requests come forward, as they have in the past, to fly a particular flag, then council has still has the option to say yay or nay, but we actually have a pole to put it up on, and we don't have to take down the Canadian or the provincial flag, which in my mind is, you know, you're not going to put XYZ group's flag up instead of the Canadian flag, but we do need, I think, a community flagpole. At the very least, could we put a lick of paint on the two poles that are out there? It's been a bee in my bonnet for a while. But anyway, that aside, would it be possible to have staff bring back a report as I described? Mr. Mayor.
Well, let's ask the clerk, because it's her report.
True enough.
But I think that's a good idea.
Through Mayor, members of council, so if that is council's wish, I think we just need to discuss it with the public works manager to see what the cost of getting that third pole up. And I think that we would probably need third poles up at other facilities around town that we have, but you just want at the municipal office?
Just here's fine.
So I think that Jim might be the best to answer to see what kind of cost and if that's actually feasible. I think that maybe we should be separating these two reports. We'll approve the policy. Actually, there is maybe one amendment to the policy that I spoke with the mayor about this morning. And then once we pass the policy, we just direct staff to look at bringing in a third pole. I know that we have had some questions from the community about raising a community flagpole. So that's something that we would be considering as well, but we need to talk to the recreation manager as well with the public works manager.
So is that a roundabout way of saying yes, we can? Just asking.
Sure.
Sure.
Barbara?
Through the chair, so I had been approached by a member of the public as well about a community flagpole, and I'm thinking that if we need more information before we say, yeah, you know, here's the community flagpole. And I think that would need to be included in our flag flying policy. So would it not make sense to make an amendment to this resolution that we can receive the staff report for information, but that we defer the passing of the bylaw pending further review of a community flagpole from staff? Maybe we defer the passing of the bylaw and that council directs staff to bring a report with regard to the possibility of raising a third pole specifically for flying community requests.
Okay, that's a motion or amendment?
I would propose that that's how we get it done. I would support Deputy Mayor Mims' suggestion, but I think we need to actually make an amendment to the resolution as opposed to just, you know, let's pass the bylaw and then now we've got to change the bylaw in order to include a third pole if that's council's wish once we get the information.
Okay. You look like you wanted to say something. Oh, okay. So that's the motion. Do we have a seconder? Ryan? Okay. Now do you want to say something?
So through Mayor, members of council, I think it's feasible. I'd probably suggest it be looked at through the 2020 budget because there's probably going to be some budget concerns with regard to adding that third pole, and the staff could be using and lowering that flag. There's flag protocol as well. Additionally, I also think that when we're looking at having that third pole and we get requests, how are we going to mitigate those requests? Because at times there's one or two events that are happening a week. Does it have to come for council approval each time? Are you going to give that delegated authority to staff to do? And what happens when there's 2 or 3 events or requests for a day or for a week? So I think it raises some concerns with regards to that, but that certainly can be a policy that we can look at in the future. I still think with some of the issues or concerns that we've had recently with lowering of flags, we do need a policy passed to have it updated for past or existing members of staff or council. So I think that still pass the policy and make it an update, which will probably come sometime next year, so that way we can update this policy currently.
And I think that's why we need to have better discussion based on the information that you just mentioned. I know that I had raised some of those concerns to the individual, that, you know, we have to look at all of those things. So I would look forward to that. So perhaps, rather than deferring the bylaw, I don't see the resolution. I know Lindsay's been great at pulling that together, that in order for us to carry on, we can always change a policy, right, and a bylaw. But we add a clause then that council directs staff to bring back a report with regard to all of those things you mentioned, a community flagpole for consideration in the 2020 budget discussions. Does that satisfy your recommendation, Madam Clerk?
Sure, and I think that another thing that we want to add in here to update the existing bylaw that's being presented is that we add an additional clause to include the lowering of flags for line of duty, former and current members of the Dundalk Fire Department.
I would support that. It's as a friendly amendment, I guess, if the seconder would be supportive of all those changes.
Okay, so let's get this straight.
Let's see it.
Yeah, so your motion to defer this, you're withdrawing?
I would not move to defer but we would instead add a third clause.
Okay, so is that okay with the seconder after you read it?
And that we amend the bylaw, although we would need to do we do that now or when the bylaw comes up, Madam Clerk?
Through the chair, we do it when the bylaw comes up. We would just say that we approve the bylaw as amended.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the motion now is in front of us. Be it resolved, council add a third and fourth clause to include lowering of flags for line of duty, that's former and current members of the Dundalk Fire Department, and the council directs staff to bring back a report with information regarding the third community flagpole being constructed at the municipal office. Is that fine with the mover and seconder? Barb?
Could that, sorry, the line of duty, is that supposed to be in full quotations? And I'm kind of, does this say regarding a third community flagpole or a third flagpole, a third pole specifically for community flags? I might be being a little bit picky, but.
No, probably a lot.
Yes. Yeah. So you're undecided?
It's fine, as long as we understand that we're not putting up 3 community flagpoles.
No.
Thank you. For community flags.
Martin?
Just a comment, with the third pole, and the costs, do we actually know how many other community groups have flags and who want to put them up, or is it just for specific flags? I'm getting kind of lost here. Madam Clerk, sorry.
Yes.
Through mayor members of council, so we have only received one request to date. In the 3 years that I've been here, there's only been one request.
Every year.
Thank you. And then I'll read it.
More of a comment, to me, it seems like we're wasting time and money on this. We've got our Canadian flag, our municipal flag, keep them in nice shape and paint it up, and I think we can just save time and money there, just a comment.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
To advise you that in the past we have had requests to fly an autism flag, and we have put that flag up in the past years, maybe not last year, but it has been full enough times.
Okay. Jim?
I think we should separate these two items on the resolution.
Okay, so we need a motion to separate. No, we're good. Barb?
And vote on them separately?
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? soon. Okay. And that is the council directs staff to bring back a report with information regarding a third pole for community flags being constructed at the municipal office. Any more discussion on that, Barbara?
So just to be clear that this is just an information gathering so that we can determine whether the costs associated with purchasing, erecting, maintaining, and the raising and lowering of flags is worthy for 2 or 3 flags a year. And I'm thinking one of my concerns would be, what do we do when we don't have a flag to fly? Does it stand empty? So I would look forward to having the information in order to make a better decision.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Comments or questions? Okay, all in favor? And opposed? Okay, let's see what the computer says. And that motion has failed, 3 to 4. So then we go back to the original motion as amended, which would be to receive the staff report for information and approve the policy and guidelines for displaying of flags, policy 51 through the bylaw 2019-105, and then that would include the amendment, including the line of duty deaths for firefighters, both current and past. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Next, be it resolved, the council received staff report CL 2019-026 for information, and that council approved the Committee of Adjustment meeting start time be changed from 1 p.m. effective September 1st, 2019, and the council approved the public planning meeting start time to be changed to 3 p.m. effective September 1st, 2019, and that staff be directed to make the necessary changes to the council and committee calendar and updates to the website. Do I move for that? Barbara, seconder? Jason? Any discussion?
Sorry, 3 mayor members of council, there was just one friendly amendment in discussion this morning with some of the committee members, is that we would change the public planning meeting to start at 1 p.m. and community adjustment to start at 3 p.m. And the reason why this report is coming forward is at the last community adjustment meeting, we were having some discussions with regards to the space and the lag time in between those 2 meetings. So when we were discussing it, we thought it might be better for members of the public to attend an afternoon session as opposed to a morning session. So it was recommended that we write a report to make these changes so that way we can move those times of community adjustment to an afternoon. So that's why this report is coming forward with these recommendations.
Thank you. Barbara?
Through the chair, perhaps to the clerk, is our staff okay with the change? Because if the public planning meeting goes longer than 3, we need to adjourn the public planning meeting in order to start the committee of adjustment meeting and then go back to the public planning meeting. It's very rare that it goes longer than 2 hours, but it can, depending on what that if it's a plan of subdivision, if it's in collaboration with the county and they're here, it can actually go on for quite a time. And does it need to be effective September 1st? I know staff make arrangements based on the schedule that we agree to in December for the following year. To change it now, is that causing, because if the meeting goes beyond 4 or 5 o'clock, they may have family obligations and or commitments that they've already got on the table. I don't see this, that we need to hurry through this. We could go the rest of the year and then start this in 2020 so that staff can adequately plan. But I am concerned about making that switch. Committee of Adjustment generally does not go longer than an hour and a half, but planning can. So how do we address that if it does?
Through Mayor, members of council, I think staff are well aware that whenever we have meetings, same as council meetings, we are expected to be here. It's part of our job. So I think it doesn't matter. And I think for staff, we recognize that we do have to make adjustments. And it's kind of similar to when we made that change at the beginning of the year, when we had council move from the first and the third, the first. So staff make it work. I know that the deputy clerk had some rearrangements to do, but I think that it's our job to ensure that we are that we are doing. This is council's meeting. This is committee of adjustment. Sorry to single you out, but there are adjustments that we make. But this is as long as we're given enough time, we can make those arrangements. If it is council's wish to make it effective in January, we're open to that too. We were just thinking because we have the lag now, we have that ability to make those changes now, and if there's any meetings, we can see how this works, and if we need to make that time change, we could do it in January. With regards to public planning meeting, I do agree public planning meeting should be after committee adjustment, especially when there's some committee adjustment applications that go to a public planning meeting on the same day. So I think that is of concern. We had some concern from the planner who had some arrangements that they've made on Wednesdays, but again, we're in that same situation with any council meeting on a Wednesday. So I think that, again, it's up to council whenever you want to make that change. If you want to keep it 1 o'clock, 3 p.m., I leave it up to council for discussion.
Okay, Brian, then Bart.
Well, I was gonna suggest why not start it at 9 in the morning with committee of adjustment and go for an hour and a half, and then start public planning at 10:30 or even 11. And if the meeting needs to go past noon, well, everybody's here anyway. Try to keep it to the morning, and then you've got the rest of the day to do whatever, and you're not worried about keeping staff here after hours.
Okay, I'll let Joy answer that, then Bart. Oops, that was me. Okay, again. Okay, not going on.
One more time.
We'll do it again soon.
Through Mayor, members of council. You turn off the mic. Through Mayor, members of council. So that was a discussion that we had as well, and I think the same concerns when we have people coming from out of town, especially in the winters when we have a 9 a.m. start time. It's a little bit difficult, as well as when we're receiving comments. We saw at the last committee of adjustment meeting when we're receiving comments up until 9:30 in the morning, and it's kind of difficult to have that information set for the secretary, treasurer, and the planner. So if they're moved to the afternoon, we have that morning to prepare those comments and have everything collected instead of having things kind of done at the last minute, and that consideration in the wintertime, even in the summertime, we have traffic concerns or whatever it may be with people coming in. If we start the meeting at 11 o'clock or 10:30 and we go over lunch hour, you run into that same problem of staff not having a lunch hour, or you have to adjourn the public planning meeting in order to have lunch. So I don't think any solution really works, because there's an argument to everything, because if that planning meeting goes for 4 hours, that means staff and council members of the community are here from 11 o'clock till 2 or 3 o'clock without that break. And it also has a concern with regards to the consultants that are being paid for when they're coming to a public planning meeting, that their time is now, if we have to break for lunch or whatever it is, for their concerns too.
Thank you, Barb.
So I understand that concept, and I still have concern about the public planning meeting taking longer than 90 minutes. Because if any one of those 2 meetings is going to take time, it's going to be the public planning meeting. I don't understand the rationale of changing public planning meeting to be upfront to committee of adjustment for that reason. But I do appreciate your comment that it is our meeting, and it is the committee of adjustments meeting. But we sit at this table and we work as a team with staff, and we should consider that they have a life outside of this room and commitments. They maybe belong to a professional association that they have to get to. I don't see that this has to be September 1st. Whatever time we decide on, I think we should keep it as proposed and make it effective January 1, 2020, so that staff have adequate time to plan and make those rearrangements if there are any that need to be made.
Thank you. Brian?
So I'll propose an amendment where we change the Committee of Adjustment meeting to 9 AM and the public planning meeting at 10:30 AM.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Michael will second that. Okay. I guess the effective dates stand because they weren't in the amendment.
I'm asking if the mover and seconder are proposing to change the effective date.
I wasn't.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of that amendment, which would be to move Committee of Adjustment to 9 AM and the public planning to 10:30? AM. Good. It's good. I agree. Just to be clear. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So now we're back to the full motion as amended, that we received the staff report CL 2019-2026 for information, and that we approve the Committee of Adjustment meeting start time to be changed to 9 AM effective September 1st, 2019, and the council approved the public planning meeting start time to be changed to 10:30 AM effective September 1st, 2019. And that staff be directed to make the necessary changes to the council and committee calendar and updates to the website. Barb?
I'd like to move an amendment that we change the effective date to January 1st, 2020 on both the second and third clauses.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? Okay. Mark will second it. Okay. Any discussion on that? Okay, seeing none. All in favor? And opposed? And we'll see what the computer says.
Yeah, just keep going.
Yep. Okay, so let's go through those again so I can get a good count. In favor? 2, and opposed? And, that is carried.
It's not carried, yeah.
Oh, it's failed, sorry. I told you this week, because we're not gonna change it till January. 5
We're only
before the
voting on
meetings.
of
Changing to January.
And that failed.
Okay, so now we're back to the original motion, and that's with for the morning and for starting September 1st. Any further discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Okay. Be it resolved, council received staff report, fire 2019 dash, there it goes, 006 for information. And the council approved the hiring of Joe Tonkinson, Celine Wilson, Trevor Mills, Christian McKenzie, and Matthew Brewer as probationary 4th class firefighters with the Dundalk Fire Department. Do I have a mover for that? Martin and Jim? Okay, and do you have anything to add, Chief?
Not really. They're still pretty new. They're starting their recruit class this weekend, and we have 8 Saturdays to complete before they ride a truck.
Okay, great.
And now we're just trying to bring our numbers back up.
Good, good. Barbara?
I happened to meet them at the recreation weekend, the Fireman's Frolic, and they're very keen and enthusiastic young people, so it was really nice to meet them and work with them on those ride floaty things.
They seem to be a good group. Yesterday we had a structure fire and a couple of them came back out afterward and sent a text out. We were all pretty trained. We had 7 guys, and then 3 stations came to help. And then I sent a text out to ask if they want to help
Seeing none, all in favor? That definitely is carried. Yes. Thanks, Mitch. Okay, next one. Be it resolved that council receives staff report EDO 2019-009 for information, and the council directs staff to discontinue the production of the Southgate Community Directory, and the council directs staff to provide ongoing support to update the Southgate portion of the Grey County Business Directory, and that the township EDO create an online listing on our Southgate website. That would be, I guess, our new website. Do I have a mover for that? Michael, seconder, Martin? Hi, Glenn. Anything you'd like to add?
Not really.
Okay.
Questions?
Yep. Are there any questions, Martin?
Morning, Glenn. I was on that site for Maiden Grey this morning, and it's pretty dry. It just has all the listings of companies. It's good. It's very usable. And it says here the online listing for Southgate website, what comes up. Would it be along that format, or would we be allowed to give more businesses, be allowed to give business cards to upload, so it's a little bit more creative looking and a little bit more oomph than the Grey one, Grey County one?
I guess I can't really answer that one now until I see what our new website's gonna be like.
The feasibility?
It should be feasible, I would assume. And I haven't seen information, like I haven't did a download to see what comes up. It'll probably be like an Excel spreadsheet of all the information, so we should be able to take that and make it into something that looks nice. And it's more useful.
Good, thank you. We could ask our clerk about that because she knows all kinds of stuff.
Do you want to be more specific with your question?
Just on the new website, are we able to do some more creative things for the community listing than just listing things?
100%, and Jamie currently is working on that calendar, so when we have that calendar up, we're gonna be able to have 3 separate calendars integrated into one. So we'll have members of the community being able to update with staff approval of putting stuff on the calendar. So it's gonna be a lot more interactive and effective, but as we get closer and we start ready to launch, we'll be able to work with everybody to make sure that it's updated appropriate with some more interactive tools for economic development and the library and.
I knew you'd know the answer. Thank you. Barbara?
So I can see the need to, it's disappointing that the directory is going to be discontinued, but I can see the difficulty in keeping the residential listing updated with more and more people dropping their landlines. Cell phones don't have a Canada 411 to look up somebody, not yet anyway, and residents don't seem to contact the township to let them know that, hey, I no longer live there, or I've changed my number, or the person has moved on. So, I mean, I support it. It's disappointing, but I also look forward to the directory being online, and I like the fact that you are continuing to produce brochures and things that can get that word out for those who aren't on the internet constantly.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? That is carried. Thanks, Glenn. Okay, we'll do a couple more and then we'll take a break. Be it resolved, council receives staff report. FIN 2019-030, 2019 tax rates as information, and the bylaw 2019-104, being a bylaw to adopt tax rates required to raise the 2019 own purposes levy of $6,662,169 using 2019 tax ratios to further provide for penalty and interest in default of payment for 2019 2019, and to provide for the collection thereof, be considered for approval. Do I have a mover for that? Barbara and Michael? Liam?
I'll just say this is fairly routine. The council already approved the budget at $606.6 million, and the county's approved the tax ratios. The only notable change really is the farm tax ratio decreasing to 0.24. So these tax rates is essentially the end result to raise that $6 million from based on assessment of the classes.
Thank you. Does council have any questions? Comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Next up, we have, be it resolved, council receives staff report FIN 2019-029, fees and charges as information, and the bylaw 2019-106, being a bylaw to establish fees and charges for certain services provided by the Township of Southgate, be considered for approval. Do I have a mover for that? Martin? Seconder, Barbara? Anything you want to add on that one?
So what we are attempting to do is have a fee increase at least once a year, aiming for September 1st, because that helps with the recreation department, and then the building department is probably going to be January 1st. So ultimately, twice a year we'll probably have a fees and charges update, so a secondary update. So what we have done is basically gone through the fees and generally recommended a 2% increase in most areas where we thought it was necessary, and except for arena revenues was 5% increase.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns from council? Brian, then Martin?
Liam, question I noticed on the administration fees and charges. Administration fee for issuing a refund. What type of refund would we charge somebody $30? Can you give an example?
If they've overpaid their taxes and they wish us to cut a check to return the money to them before, rather than applying their credit to a future tax bill, then that would be cost a $30 fee. Or if they made a deposit or paid for a program and they withdrawn, then there would be a $30 administrative fee to refund the money for that.
So if I pay extra $5 by mistake for my dog tag, you're not going to charge me $30 for my $5 back?
No, in that instance, there would be discretion because there wouldn't be any ability to charge that fee on that.
Okay, I'll have faith in your discretion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Martin?
Thanks. There was one question, Beth's not here, but I guess I can direct this one to you, Jim. The old Dundalk Town Hall, the old council chambers, there's still a rental fee for that. It's $6.53. Is it still classed as a real asset? Like, what I'm trying to say here is it's like it's still being used for many things. And is there anything in upkeep of it to keep it warranted at $56.53? I didn't realize the council chambers were being used. That's my point. Or even up as a rental.
Just to clarify, so we're talking about with the Old Town Hall council chamber?
Yes, Old Town Hall, then it said, Old Council Chambers, then it was $56.53. I was just wondering how many times it was being used.
No. It would be the old Dundalk Council chambers, and they,
Yeah, okay.
Where early on is right now.
yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay.
So it can't be rented.
Yeah, so it's being used by early on right now, and then when they move over to the arena, and that room will be empty.
And used.
Yeah, so it could be
Okay,
used.
that's basically what I was trying to.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yep, no problem. Any other questions or comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, do you want to take a 5-minute stretch vote now, since we've been here a while? Okay, so I'll call a recess, and we'll be back in 5 minutes if we can. hit that little button again for everybody. If he changes it back, there is. Yeah.
Cooler after the ass for heat.
Well, really, just kind of that or your presentation.
I mean, as far as the post, it's on Mount Forest.
Okay, well, I can always go there and see if there's enough. But if you could just pop that over to me, that'd be great.
Well, that's just it, keep it fixed.
Or whatever.
So it's just see.
That's why I said I wasn't looking for a small every one of them, I just thought one more here, quite
You don't see too many of them in local communities, you know, it's really,
I don't disagree.
as he found out.
Anyway. The issue's not gonna go away, so everything is.
Papers that don't give you what, like, you had to pay.
I was interested to hear that.
Even if it's
Yeah, so we can do that for somebody, but not somebody else.
Yeah, that's not right at all. Either all or none.
It's the hard
Get it online and the competition for advertising dollars drops a little bit more. Everybody is, as we heard this morning, you know, a foundation.
Yeah.
There's only so much business you can do. I mean, we see it.
Yeah, copy of it.
I
What's the post call even?
Yeah.
I was in, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
I graduated one day and started.
Over this year.
Yeah. A long time ago.
Yeah, no,
And,
that's
It comes up.
you know, and
But, it comes up on here and there's, more events and.
You believe every word this young lady tells you.
because Ryan, you know, Ryan tells me what he's like. But don't forget, we made the public landscape.
Absolutely.
With really good ones.
Yeah.
That Dan likes.
And we're gonna put it in your side meeting.
That's fine, that's fine.
In your garage.
We've got a curmudgeon.
You
Oh,
apply.
you're really pushing.
You
your luck
apply
We've
for
there.
got a
that.
curmudgeon on the street, put it right in front of his house.
And
Why, does he stand out in his porch and say,
Yes, yes, when you're not even on his lawn, when you're on the shoulder.
And you probably walk
And he
down the
started-
sidewalk from his place to the garbage, do
You
you?
know, and he started dropping F-bombs on me, and I said, sir, look, first of all, this is not your property, this is township property, and would you like to stand here while you talk?
change in motion and things like
So he got more F-bombs. He's got a big sign on his lawn, no trespassing, no dogs, kids play in his ditch while they're waiting for the school bus, and he goes chasing after them.
I've made movies about this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he moved into our subdivision because he doesn't like children. You don't make kids in our subdivision.
Oh, it's tons of them lately, yeah.
It's great. I mean, there's some geezers because they're newborn.
Oh, no, I
An elephant.
Everybody needs one, right?
Hey, it's straight now, because people, when I'm giving directions, as you go past the elephant, you look to the left.
That's great. That's great.
It's a wonderful little
It's just before the toll train.
Well, he finished up with the tiki bar in front of this guy. And Dan's complaining because it's, you know, it's never open, and I wanna glue some, if he puts it up again this year, I wanna glue some plastic sunglasses on the wall. But I mean,
Yeah, everything's.
everybody in the community has fun with this.
Everything's right here.
And I mean, Dan and I are among the oldest, so I mean, we should do the
was just gonna say, you thank him, because if he wasn't, they'd pick on you.
Yeah.
Here's the background.
You wait till you get his order.
Yeah.
That would be as old as me.
Yeah.
How old are you? Can I ask it?
Yeah.
Why?
No, I'm not even.
I just read it on there.
Wow.
That's what I said, I was
So
a teenager.
it's all there, and if there's some of them.
I'm just 59.
See,
Just
just
a
a baby.
I know. You got a lot to teach me yet.
I do.
Not today, though. Take care.
So that's why you'll see us sometimes, as things are being presented, we'll be going through this, because we may want to look a little farther on it, or.
Yeah, I'll send it.
So you can go full screen and everything, but with this, you can go back, that's today's meetings, upcoming meetings. The upcoming meetings,
Are you still painting?
if they've got a colored thing over here, that means the agendas are already
Do
published.
I use that card to contact?
Yeah, stuff.
Your email to contact her or
You
what?
can go to today's stuff, or all that stuff.
Well, you
So
just work for
to
Donna
me,
there.
the hand works fairly well.
We're just having the kitchen done now, but we're gonna need, it's okay.
I'll let it.
Yeah, pretty much. Twice a month. Yeah. But see, there's tons of background stuff there, so it doesn't apply. Yeah, that's all that, and then so the drainage.
It's nasty.
Well, the drainage,
And what really,
is pretty straightforward, they don't have a background.
everybody in town got PO'd.
To do with it, so,
And one of your members.
so it's good, and you can make your own rules depending what you do. So, I find
Oh, he
this
just thinks
it works really well.
pretty cool, huh, then?
Yeah.
How are you? I think you know what's happening. That's just flat. Maybe we should actually point that out.
Well, I was thinking we should maybe follow our procedure. We do. There's certain things that we have in it, only 2 questions per item type of thing, up to 5 minutes of talking per person on the thing. And that's just a way of controlling it a bit, but if it's important, I always get the last, okay, well, 1 more question, 2 more questions, it's fine, or like whatever's going on. If it's something really important, that's right, yeah. Because,
we were there, I'm on the alternate.
Oh, you're the alternate.
because,
You go up?
yeah, one of the things that, is to have somebody that wants to solve.
No, I'm the alternate.
They can
But you realize
right now, nothing in place to stop.
Yeah, we were there.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
But on occasion.
Yeah, well, some do, some do, and some don't with the number of questions, or they'll have the number of questions at the time, or whatever. It's just a way of controlling it a bit, and as long as, people are being reasonable. Yeah, so it works out.
We had to spend,
Yeah.
it was in a program meeting, and
Yeah.
nothing is being filed in motion of the I did. I was encouraged.
Yeah. Right, yeah, well, yeah, so we really don't talk about everything. Yeah, transparency, things like that.
That I don't know about.
When they look at our stuff, they all know what we're going, like, so it gets published Friday. So anyone who looks at the agenda will know, okay, these are the motions that they're looking at. Yeah, so with this is the agenda that's come out, and, fire chief, so that comes out like that, on the agenda, with the background information. So people know kind of what's going on before, and then we can modify that. Yeah.
That is helpful.
You have to let people know Let them know before they can do anything to help them.
Yeah.
2004, the water project was done, young individual workers. And, the disaster commander decided he would get people together and it was called Citizens on the Hill.
But what about
It was a great idea. And the citizens,
so,
I thought it was 10
like,
individuals.
there was something,
The driver,
just amendments,
the next meeting was 8,
because we did one.
next meeting was 2. And they all screamed. Right.
That's on the, so yeah, I'll be around.
That's really a line having it confront. If you want, but there's not enough police, there's not enough.
But they work.
If you're not willing to help,
No, I agree.
if you're not willing to
Well, as far as I know, I think that's fine, but we'll have to see. Yep, okay.
Walking on Main Street.
Yeah, that's you got a couple of minutes.
People know, leaving the kids' bicycles on the porch or the baby chairs on the porch, it's gone.
Yeah, it worked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Oh,
much.
no problem.
I'll be back at District Street.
Yeah.
So they'll probably see you at the next police services board meeting.
I guess, yeah, if I get to, yeah. Yep.
Thanks very much.
Yep.
See ya.
Bye.
Yeah.
Across the township.
No, that's, Great Highland.
No, that's not.
Westford.
That's Westbury. That's not
Oh,
Young.
East Westbury, yeah, Westbury,
I was gonna say it.
Westbury.
Westbury.
It's only water, not vodka.
Sorry.
You can have it.
That's what they all say.
Fast.
Yeah.
Hit that button again for mine.
I can hear him.
Yeah, and here.
That's all right.
Yep.
Won't listen to it.
All right, let's go. I've already let them know who's coming.
Okay. Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. Next up, we have be it resolved, council receives staff report, W 2019-052 for information, and that council approves staff recommendation option number 2 to defer the Dundalk Transfer Station upgrade project funding in 2019 budget until 2020 for re-tendering of the project next year. Do I have a mover for that? Jim and Martin will second. Okay, Jim?
Yeah, we did talk to the lowest bid on some options, how to maybe piece this together, but it just seems complicated that, where you're ending off, because we're kind of in the middle, that's kind of the part that's really deteriorated, and where the new cells would start to begin. It doesn't really make sense unless we do it basically all at once, or be able to at least do the new cells with the piece of work. But again, that would increase the scope, where it's, just over the budget right now, it would really throw it out. So, the only other, recommendation is if council wanted to give all the money, we go ahead and do it.
Well, that's an option. Any questions or comments? Michael? Yeah, that's right.
After the road tour, I really liked the one out at Egremont. I really think that we need to set ourselves up at Dundalk at the same way. It's going to be a long-term investment, that we need more money for next year's budget to create the same atmosphere, the concrete barrier wall there and the platform up front. I know it's on a landfill out there, but I think we really should be looking at doing that, so it's a one-time deal that's going to last.
Thank you. Any other comments or, Martin?
Yeah, the idea of piecemealing it doesn't appeal. Like if it gets done one shot, and I've never been to the Egremont one, I wasn't on a road tour, but if that is the ideal, and even if it's just a combination, taking the best of that one and do it in one go, for next year,
Any further comments or questions? No, do it once, do it right. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, move on to Dave's reports. Be it resolved, council received staff report, CAO 2019-075 as information, and the council approved the draft Plateau North Phase 4, 5, and 6 subdivision agreement as presented without security calculations, and the council consider approval of the final Plateau North Phase 4, 5, and 6 subdivision agreements by municipal bylaw at the August 7th, 2019 council meeting. Do I have a mover for that? Brian and then Jim. And do you have any on that? Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, just on the securities update, they're being submitted, so there'll be some jostling of how the securities are within the other phases of the project, so that's why this will come again for final approval with the securities in August.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, all in favor of the resolution? That is carried. Thank you. Be it resolved, council receives staff report, CAO 2019-076 as information, and the council approved the job description for the position of Human Resources Coordinator and Assistant to the CAO as presented following the Job Evaluation Committee review, and the council approved the Job Evaluation Committee review of the job description of the Human Resources Coordinator and Assistant to the CAO to place the position in pay band 10 on the Southgate employee pay grid, and the council directs staff to proceed with an internal job posting closing July 11th, 2019, and if unsuccessful in that hiring process, the township proceed with an external and internal hire posting with appropriate advertising closing August 5th, 2019. Do I have a mover for that? Martin, seconder. Brian? Is there anything you can add to that, Jim?
Just that because building is going to get a full-time person that'll come out of the reorganization and of this admin person, there'll be some money that'll be built in towards that other full-time employee, and that if there was need, we could maybe support this through half of, because it wouldn't be starting till September or somewhere in that range if the hiring process goes right, that about 20,000 would be required for the year, roughly somewhere in that amount, that we could possibly look at funding some of that from the efficiency fund that for a long and short-term staffing for the township and possibility for the position.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Barbara?
So through the chair, and I am so supportive of having an HR presence in our organization and pursuing this position. But I have to echo Deputy Mayor Milne's comments that it's not in the budget, and there are a lot of moving parts. Specifically, the building department, there's a change in that administrative position being proposed. We have pieces being taken from virtually every administrative position within the organization, including, and not just administrative, but the deputy treasurer. That has in its position description HR responsibilities, so that's going to be affected. The deputy clerk has responsibilities that will be, moving around. The legislative and communications coordinator, we changed that position just before, as we hired the person who's currently the current incumbent, and I don't even know if that's been reevaluated. And I think that the CAO has always said, it's a journey, it's not a destination, and wouldn't it be wise to take a step back and do the best to get it right the first time, to evaluate all of the positions and see how those positions are going to change as a result of creating this new position, which I do support. We've also just conducted a market check on the positions. Had these changes been made, would that have affected the market check results? So I just think that there's more to this position, and a dialogue needs to be had with employees and with the department heads to evaluate the whole organization. And space. Deputy Mayor Milne mentioned, where are we going to put this person? I don't think that an HR position should be at the very front corner where they're dealing with confidential employee issues, perhaps, or confidential information that could be overheard or seen at the front counter. And that kind of goes to our accessibility. How are we changing the office around? And I would encourage that we look at the Certified Human Resources Professional designation. It's an entry-level designation for human resources clerks and human resources coordinators. It's a step up. It's an actual designation as opposed to seminar at AMCTO. So I would like to propose that council defer the staff report CAO 2019-076 to the 2020 budget discussions, and pending a robust review with department heads of all administrative positions as they relate to and or are affected by the creation of the Human Resources Coordinator and CAO Assistant position, including that of the Deputy Treasurer and Deputy Clerk, to ensure the most beneficial realignment of responsibilities throughout the organization.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Martin will second it. Okay, discussion. Martin?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to think about. The one thing that stuck in my mind was that if you have an HR, and I looked at the job description, it's quite detailed for everything. I mean, that's a lot to throw on one person. One question that came to my mind, would there still, I guess to you, Madam Clerk, would there still be a need to go outside to a more experience like the company we have already? So initially having a paid person doing it, but still having to pay for a consultant that might not be able to deal with such a, I don't know what, a really bad code of conflict or a really bad personal issue, would it be done in-house, or would there still be a need for a professional consultant after the fact, like, depending on the expertise of the person that gets hired, if it's not in-house?
Through the mayor to members of council, I still think that unless you're in a bigger organization and you have an actual individual with CHRP or whatever that CHRP, that official designation, I think it's hard to expect in a small municipality with someone that doesn't have that experience to be able to deal with some of these bigger issues. We were in a situation last year where we had an investigation and some issues, and I was part of that, and the treasurer was part of that, so we still had to call for external help. Had that situation happened this time with this position, I think with that position reporting to the CAO, that person still couldn't even do that investigation because of that reporting. I still think that there would be a need for external resources, just because as you're growing and learning in that position, I still think that there's issues that we will have to go to the experts for. So it all depends. We hope that we don't have those kinds of issues, but I think if there are, and like the CAO had said, if we needed some assistance, we could always go to the county for that too. Right? So there's a little bit of leeway, but I think those more specific questions, it's too bad that the CAO isn't here, but I think that there's always situations that could happen. There's things that could arise, and we're always put in a situation that we've probably never dealt with something before, but we don't know until, you can get the most experienced person, but sometimes the most experienced person might not ever have to deal with that issue too. So I think it all depends.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions on that? Seeing none, so we have a motion to defer. All in favor? Looks like it's carried. We'll see what the numbers are. We should have, and that is carried. So that motion is deferred. Next, be resolved, council received staff report, CAO 2019-0